Welcome to this Club3d tutorial. In this session we're going to try and make a table with a tablecloth. So this is what the end result's going to look like. We're going to have a sort of carpeted floor with a textured table and then a little tablecloth over the top. So if we start from what you see when you start at Blender, remember you push the mouse wheel in to have a look around, and we'll make this cube into the table. So we're going to scale it with S. And then move your mouse and click when you're ready. I'm going to press Z to force it to just scale in the Z direction, and click until it's about the right sort of depth of the table. And then I'll press S and Y to just drag it out a little bit in the Y axis. That's the green line. So this is kind of the dimensions of the top of the table. So I'm going to go into edit mode by pressing Tab. You can see edit mode down here, and Control and R lets us put loop cuts on. So as you put your mouse over any of these lines, you'll be able to chop it. That's what a loop cut is. So I'll click here and then move down here and click again, and then Control R for another loop cut, and then on the side. And I want to put some faces. Well, I want a square face that I can drag down for a table leg, basically. So let's push the mouse wheel down so that we can look from underneath the table. Control and Tab lets us select face mode, and right click to select the corner. E to extrude will pull that down. We've got one table leg. So we could do the same, we could add some loop cuts and extrude down. We've done that in the past in Club3d, but instead we're going to add some modifiers. So we're going to go for a mirror modifier. And here, when you put it on by default, it mirrors in the X axis, so that's got another table leg. We're also going to mirror it in the Y axis, so we get all four table legs. So we'll keep that, but we'll also add on a bevel modifier, and that just kind of cuts around the edges to make it a little bit more detailed. Okay, back out to object mode by pressing Tab. So we've got our table. Now we want to make the table look wooden. So if you pop your mouse on the little lines in the corner of the 3D view and drag across, so I've dragged down, you'll see you can edit the viewpoint in Blender. It gets a little bit fiddly the first time you do it, but it's quite powerful otherwise, and then you can kind of drag out to change it. So I want to keep the one I had already, but I want to drag across this time. So we're going to set it up so that you can apply a 2D texture onto this 3D object. And it's worth just searching for a texture. So this is the carpet we're going to use. I just search for like wood and then tileable. Tileable means that it will tessellate, which means you can sort of go next to each other without you being able to see the edges. So I've just found a texture and then saved it. So to put that onto your model, we're going to change it to cycles mode. Blender renders much faster, but it's older and not quite as, not nearly as realistic. Game's great for like 3D games that you make in Blender, but cycles is by far and away the best rendering. It takes a little bit more time to render, but you can make it look really nice and realistic. So first of all, let's name our cube. We've got all the objects in here, and it gets confusing if you just keep calling them cubes and planes and things. So I'm going to call this table, and then move across to the sort of radioactive material symbol and change this to wood. I'm going to click Use Nodes, and we're going to click on the little dot next to the colour and Image Texture. This is when we need to choose the image that we've saved, so I'll click Open. I've saved a bookmark to where I save my textures, and I've just downloaded a wood file. Now you won't be able to see it yet. We need to do two things first. First of all, we're going to change the view mode from solid to material, and you can see the colour of the image now, but you can't see it properly. What we need to do is splat the 2D image into a three-dimensional object, and we use UV unwrapping for that. So on this other viewpoint that we've made, we'll change it from 3D view into UV image editor. We'll open up the wood texture on here and zoom out a little bit. Pop your mouse over the 3D view and go into edit mode with Tab. I'm going to press A until everything is selected, and then U to unwrap, and then you should see all of the faces here have now been assigned with you've wrapped and said where you want each of these faces. So it's kind of squidging all of these faces, this 2D image onto a 3D shape. Okay, so I'll go back into object mode by pressing tab when my mouse is over here. Next I'm going to add a plane for the floor, so Shift and A, add a plane, and I'll scale it up and then click, and I'll do the same sort of process. I'll name it, and just going to call it carpet, and then I need to add a texture to it as well, so I'll add a new texture, choose the image, and then open the image here. So I've called it carpet, and then we need to unwrap the image as well. So we go into edit mode, make sure we've got the right image selected, and then press U and unwrap. So this carpet texture looks far too big at the moment, but if you pop your mouse over here and press S, you can scale it up or down until it looks about right. So this is why we wanted a tileable image, so that you can see it now tessellates and you can't see the seams or the edges. So we've got our carpet, we've got our table, now we need a tablecloth. So back into object mode, Shift and A, add a plane, G and Z to move it up, and click. And I'd like the tablecloth to be about the same sort of shape as the table, but a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go into quad view, that's Control, Alt and Q. That lets you see it from 4 different angles, and that's really handy just for positioning stuff. So I'm pressing G to grab or S to scale, and then I'm going to scale it in the X direction until it's about right. Okay, Control, Alt and Q again. That'll do. So I just want it to be a little bit bigger in every direction so it overhangs. Okay, so I'll search on Google for a tablecloth tileable image, and I've saved one already, but you can search for that. I'll call it cloth. On the object tab, go across to the material tab, add a new material, make it a image texture. This time let's find that image that you will have searched for. I've just got one called tablecloth, and again we need to unwrap it, so go into edit mode, make sure we're looking at the right image, U, unwrap, and again I'll scale it up until it looks about right. Okay, good, so we don't need this UV editor anymore, so click on the little lines, drag it across, and then you can choose which one you want to keep. I want the view on the right to go across to the left, so I'll let go now. There we go. Alright, so Blender comes with some cloth modeling tools, so it can kind of mimic what happens when cloth falls down and interacts with other objects. So this doesn't look very realistic at the moment, but it'd be nice if it fell down onto the table and then drooped over the edges. So that's what we'll do next. But before I do that, I'll just rename this texture to cloth. So I'll scroll across with the tablecloth selected, click on the physics tab, and we're going to make it cloth, clicking just here. Now, on your timeline along here, if we run our animation with Alt and A, at the moment nothing happens. That's because I'm still in edit mode, Shift and left to go back to the beginning, into object mode, Alt and A, and you can see that the cloth falls through the table, which isn't much fun. So we're going to right click on the table. This time, rather than making it cloth, we'll just make it collide by clicking collision. We run it again, Alt and A. Now the tablecloth just falls and bashes onto the table. So we want it to droop over the edges, but at the moment this tablecloth has only got 4 vertices, 4 points. So if we select it, right click, tab to go into edit mode, and so that's easier for you to see at the moment, I'll just go into solid mode here. We've only got 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices, so we're going to subdivide it. I'm going to press W and then subdivide, and that's now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 vertices, because it's cut once in both directions. Over here on the tools panel we can change it up until we get a bit more detail, so I'll go for about I'll go for 10 cuts, and then I'll go back into object mode by pressing tab, change it back into material. Now this time when I press Alt and A, you should be able to see the cloth falling down onto the table. Now you can play around with the different settings, so you can choose what type of cloth it is. Like silk will fall much more quickly than leather, for example. Leather's a bit more sort of rough and ready. You can play around with all the settings. I'm going to go for cotton, Shift and left to go back to the beginning, alternate to run it, and then just alternate before it falls off the table. Okay, and that will do. So if we go to the camera view by pressing 0 on numpad, if you haven't got a numpad, you can go view and camera. Right click on the edge of the camera and shift and F, that puts it in fly mode, and you can kind of move the camera around to where you want it to be, and then click, and then if you press F12 you should be able to render it. Now by default always seems to be a little bit dark for me, so I'm going to go into the world tab and change the default colour and just make it a little bit lighter, and then render it again, function F12, and then you should have a fairly reasonable render of a table with a tablecloth. So you can feel free to add some cutlery, you can add some plates, some bowls, maybe a glass, and put some water inside that swirls around. Have some fun. If you make anything good, then post a video, post a picture, and share a link to it. I'd really love to see. I hope this has been useful. Thanks for watching.